Okay, so I'm going to first start off by saying I might mispronounce or make things sound a little weird because of my braces. I just got them, but anyways, I'm going to start off with the levels of organization. And here's my diagram. I kind of just drew out of the book. I liked it and it made sense to me. So we had to start off with the subatomic particles, which are the protons, neutrons, and electrons. And with this, it kind of makes up our atoms. And to me, with this levels of organization, it kind of, you have to have one thing to get to the next. So with the atoms, once you combine two or more atoms, you have a molecule. And with a molecule, it basically is just a bunch of atoms connected, and those can form like amino acids and such. So once you have more molecules coming together and getting connected, it forms a bigger molecule, which is a macromolecule, and those are like our carbs or proteins or fats, and with that it forms an organelle, which to me is like a small organ inside of a cell, like the brain, the nucleus, or like the mitochondria. And with that it forms a cell, which a cell is basic unit of structure function. And once you have all these cells coming together and forming groups, it forms a tissue. And with tissues, it kind of has like a specialized functions, and these specialized functions form organs. And from these organs, they form an organ system, which once you get an organ system and all these organs coming together to function together, you form an organism such as ourselves. So going on, we have homeostasis, which is our body's way to maintain a stable, balanced environment, or sameness, how we basically function. And with that, we have the negative feedback loop and the positive feedback loop, which the negative feedback loop is like it turns on and it turns back off. So an example is when we're hot or we're cold, our body either sweats to get our hotness and our body temperature down, our pores open up, we try to cool down, or when we're cold, our body and muscles kind of contract and we start to shiver to form body heat. The positive feedback loop, it amplifies or increases the occurrence of events. So I thought a great example of this was when a mother starts to breastfeed their child, and the baby, the more the baby nurses, the more breast milk the body produces for the baby. So that's the positive feedback loop. And then going on to the anatomical terms, we have anterior and posterior, which are kind of the same. The anterior means towards the front, so our eyes are anterior towards our brain. Posterior means towards the back, so our spine is posterior to our sternum. Superior means above, so our eyes are superior to our oral cavity. Inferior means below, so our neck is inferior to our head. Medial means closer to our midline, so our nose is medial to our eyes. Lateral means towards our side, so our ears are lateral towards our eyes. Distal means further from our trunk, so our fingers are distal towards our wrist. And proximal means closer to our trunk, so our elbow is proximal towards our wrist, because it's closer to the trunk. Superficial means near our surface, so our skin is our superficial layer, and deep is our more inside of us, so our organs are deep internal part of our body. So the quadrants of, or no, I'm going to start with our body sections. So we have sagittal, transverse, and frontal. So our sagittal basically divides our body into our left and right portion. So if you just cut us in half, our transverse is divides our body into superior and inferior. So this is our cutting in half horizontal. So our superior part is our upper above half, and our inferior part is our lower body half. And then the frontal divides our body into anterior and posterior. So basically, if you cut us in half sideways, our anterior portion is our frontal half, and our posterior half is our back half. So going into our body regions, we are basically cut into 9 sections. And I know my drawing's not the best, but so we start from our right hypochondriac section, and then we go into our epigastric region, and then our left hypogastric region, and then our middle part is our left lumbar region, our umbilical region, and then our left lumbar region, and then our bottom half is our right iliac region, and then we have our hypogastric region, and then the left iliac region. And then to make this even more simpler, they divided it into just 4 sections, which is our right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, and then our right lower quadrant, and our left lower quadrant. So going on to there, I think. Now then we have our body cavities, which again my pictures aren't the best, but starting off we have our basically our body is divided into 2 portions: our axial portion, which is our head, neck, and trunk, and then our appendicular region, which is our lower and upper limbs of the body. So starting out, it is the cranial cavity, which basically just holds the brain, and then we have our vertebral cavity, which is our spinal cord, and then we have our thoracic cavity, which can be divided into 3 main parts, which is our left and right pleural cavity, which holds our lungs, and then we have the pericardial cavity, which holds our heart. And then dividing our thoracic cavity and our abdominal pelvic cavity is the diaphragm, which is just a thin muscle. And then the abdominal pelvic cavity, which is our abdomen and our pelvic cavity, into 2 sections. So I think that is it for my first video.